trending in search?
I'm sure there's a few things, but I don't go by that usually. I don't go by trends.
Either, but it does indicate what
Everyone else is looking at.
Yeah.
Entertainment. They're probably looking at either the Hunger Games or they're looking at the news media try and convince them that the Marvels is actually a good movie. It's really a good movie. You just don't understand. The economy's fantastic. You just don't understand. You don't know what good entertainment is. You don't know what it is to have to how much money you have in your paycheck. It doesn't matter that you're paying $25, $30 per person to see a movie that's substandard. Don't worry about it. That's not important. You just have to consume because they made it. And by the way, it has a life lesson for you. Obey. Be Democrat. Obey. Just do what we say. It's all propaganda.
Yeah, it is. Well, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable by the Liberty First Foundation. I'm Michael Marshall, one of the co-founders of the Liberty First Foundation. With me is Michael Vaz Vasquez. He's a dragon of the Southern Tier, but actually he's in Brooklyn or the Bronx?
Political dragon. We're going with the political dragon because I'm in my temporary office in the Bronx.
The Bronx.
Yeah, big difference between Brooklyn and the Bronx. Big difference.
I don't know because I've never been in New York City. So
I guarantee you, everyone in Brooklyn will tell you in a heartbeat because Brooklyn's everywhere except in Brooklyn. But if you find someone from Brooklyn, which isn't hard to find, they will tell you in a heartbeat, it's not the Bronx.
So, as usual, we've got a ton of things going on in the realm of politics. Most notably, I want to start off with what's going on with Israel and Palestine. And in particular, what's going on here in the United States as a result of that.
Well, there's a couple of parts of that are pretty interesting because it's not just what's happening overseas, it's happening here in America.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. That's
the thing is you can literally see the American political divide in the United States by which side they are supporting in that conflict in Israel. Well, it's getting worse and worse because it's not even just, it's not the question of should we be involved in conflicts around the world. It's if you're not supporting Palestinians, which don't exist, by the way, there is no country Palestine, does not exist. There isn't.
So you can't be pro-Palestinian because there is no such place. You're pro-Hamas, which is the government of Gaza. And if you aren't pro-Hamas, then you're some evil, bad person. And that's how the media is making this. And it's going straight down political lines. We're seeing it in every aspect of our lives, forgetting about the fact that, well, Hamas, by its doctrine, this is the elected government. This is who the people in Gaza elected, have as their charter statement that they want to commit genocide. Mm-hmm. They are supported by Iran that wants to commit genocide. They have almost all but eliminated from the news media the fact that at least 33 Americans have been killed. At least 16 Americans were taken hostage. By the way, that number over the last week, they went from at least 16 Americans being held hostage, tortured, raped, and used as human shields. And suddenly the news media then said, well, then it was down to 9. And then it was down to 8 if they reported at all.
Yeah.
Mind you, none of these people came home. They're not home. They're not anywhere safe. They just suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
Kind of like as if they were in Afghanistan. It's insulting.
Well, it is. And the thing is we've got the pro-Palestinian side that refuse to acknowledge what led up to this. They absolutely refuse to acknowledge it. They refuse to acknowledge that this started off with Hamas literally bombing residential neighborhoods in Israel. Hamas going door to door, killing defenseless civilians, men, women, and children, just at random, going into each house and just gunning them down. They refuse to acknowledge the number of people that were kidnapped and drug into Gaza to be used as human shields, including women and children, babies. They refuse to acknowledge the Hamas decapitating babies during their raid into Israel.
Which Hamas doesn't deny. In fact, Hamas has admitted they have done these atrocities. They don't deny this.
They are proud of it.
Yeah.
They're proud of it. That's the whole thing, is they are proud of it. But yet they are claiming that Israel, because it is trying to eliminate Hamas, is committing genocide.
Look, we can have a discussion about, is Israel using too much force? We can have that conversation. But there is nowhere in the world, you cannot make the leap to say Israel, in response to their babies, their children, their loved ones civilians being killed, suddenly in a terrorist attack, their response, we can say their response is maybe too emotional, too heavy-handed. You can make that argument, but you can't say, well, retroactively, because they are acting so vehemently about their babies being killed, that justified killing their babies in the first place, which is the logic that the left wants us to have.
And a lot, especially characters like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, would like you to believe that Israel had set up an apartheid state in Gaza.
That's
and the
crap.
West Bank.
That's crap.
Okay.
The Palestinians have never had it so good. The people who call themselves Palestinians have been abandoned by every Middle Eastern country.
Well, that's exactly it. Okay. And we had this discussion 1 or 2 weeks ago about how Palestine actually came into existence.
Yes.
And it was literally the dredges, the unwanted people from other Arab nations that ended up becoming Palestine.
Yeah, because they dumped it on Israel to give Israel a headache because they couldn't beat Israel in a fight because of the wars they lost.
And literally, the wars since World War II. Okay, the 100-Day War, the 7-Year War, and so forth, where the Arabs have constantly tried to eliminate Israel, and they've failed each and every time. They have failed.
7-Day War, 6-Day War, 10-Day War.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to lose this time as well. They
will.
I mean, Lebanon is attacking the West Bank right now. For people who don't know, that's kind of the north part of Israel, and it's being attacked by Hezbollah right now, which is Iran. The south, which is the West Bank, that's Hamas. They're still fighting. In fact, Hamas is actually killing its own people, Palestinians trying to leave into Egypt. That's still going on. That's Israel. That's Iran too. Iran itself is directly attacking. You have the Houthis from Yemen, which are, again, Iran-backed terrorists that are also trying to attack Israel with rockets. This is all happening, by the way, and you don't have to believe me. Check the international news media. The U.S. news media doesn't want to talk about this, just like they don't want to talk about the anti-Semitism at our colleges. They don't want to talk about it, but it's happening, and everyone in the world knows it.
Okay. One of the things that we need to also understand is that the United States is heavily involved in this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
We already have the Gerald Ford
Mhm.
carrier task force in the Mediterranean,
And the Eisenhower.
and the Eisenhower. Is it in there? Is it there now?
Yes.
I knew it was steaming its way there.
It left late, but I believe it is there now. It was delayed for some. Again, I think we talked about this 3 weeks ago. The Eisenhower left right after everything started there. It was delayed because of something happening. It's funny. Blinken went to Israel. He talked to Israel. He was supposed to leave. On the same day he was supposed to leave, the Eisenhower was supposed to leave the United States to go to the Mediterranean. Somehow that same day, the Eisenhower didn't leave, and Blinken was having conversations with Hamas. Immediately, the day after that, that was Sunday, the Eisenhower finally does leave. Blinken ends his conversation with Hamas. Joe Biden shows up that Monday and promises $105 million in humanitarian aid to the government of Hamas. And suddenly we get 2 hostages. Amazing how that all just happened to happen back to back. Just amazing.
Yeah, I got to go for just a little bit. I will be right back.
Okay. So while that's all happening, folks, let me also mention to you, it's not just that, and I know this is all happening overseas. Again, remember, because the media wants you to forget, the fact is that there are 33 Americans that died in this. We are directly involved. Our American citizens were killed by a terrorist organization. That's a fact. That a terrorist organization right now is torturing women and children, American women and children right now. You want to be pro Hamas? Well, realize you are pro torture of American women and children right now. This is this is why it's such a big deal. And we have all the colleges. I don't know if everyone knows that the Department of Education, there has been so much. We have indoctrinated, our colleges have indoctrinated kids so much that the Department of Education is now investigating 7 colleges. That's Cornell University, that's Columbia University, that's Cooper Union, Wesleyan, or notice these are the top colleges in the United States, are all being investigated because of what? That they are anti-Semitic. Because we are seeing students like at Cornell University, where students have said that they have self-identified as a member of Hamas, the same terrorist group that is torturing women, American women and children right now. The same college that has a Professor Rutherford who had to go on sabbatical. He's ducked out of the public highlight after saying he was exhilarated that Hamas was killing American citizens. This is what these kids are being taught. They're being taught to be so extreme that they are now turning out they're pumping out terrorists. Literally, students who are self-identifying as terrorists. You should be terrified of this, folks. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that interruption.
No, it's all right.
Right before I was leaving, I was actually talking about the carriers in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
The Gerald R. Ford, um, if people don't know it, is the most advanced carrier in the U.S. fleet right now. Okay. It actually is a new carrier class. It effectively it actually has the capabilities of two current aircraft carriers, like the Eisenhower.
Right.
Okay, so this is the amount of firepower that the U.S. has sent into the Mediterranean. Now, if people don't know just what the capabilities of an aircraft carrier are, we're talking 4 complete squadrons of multi-purpose jets being on board
They've got nukes.
these carriers. Yes, they do have nukes. They can operate literally as effectively as a land-based air station. Okay. They bring to the table immense amount of firepower, and that's just the aircraft carriers. We're not talking about the escort ships that go with this task force, which includes Aegis class destroyers, various missile cruisers,
Battleships.
and what's that?
A couple of battleships.
Actually, they're not using battleships anymore. But the effectiveness, literally, they've got enough firepower in one aircraft group that they could literally handle pretty much everything that was going on in the Middle East. So it's kind of interesting. Why have they sent 2 there?
To threaten Iran.
And that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're going to have one being basically cover for the conflict in Israel, and the second one is to potentially take action if any one of the Arab states, in particular Iran, decides to get directly involved with this conflict.
Well, yeah, it's a message to Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iran, Yemen, the surrounding nations that surround Israel. That they could say it more directly, and I think it would be more effective if they did, to say there are American citizens in Israel and in Gaza, over 400 Americans in Gaza. God knows how many Americans in Israel right now. And if you all decide, and if each country or all of them decide to jump into this to protect those American citizens, we will level it. Because literally, an aircraft carrier, we could if we wanted to, if we were nearly as bloodthirsty as the college students would like people to think, we could level all of Gaza in a day. We have enough firepower in the Mediterranean right now. We could level the whole thing in a day if we really wanted to. We don't, because, well, partially because our leader is weak, and partially because we just don't want to do that. We're not that evil as the colleges would like you to believe. But that's the message to the rest of the world, or at least that's the best case scenario of the message, I think.
Okay. So, I'm looking right now at how many carrier task force were used in the United States. I mean, during the Iraq War.
During the Iraq War? 2.
Yes.
I thought it was 2. Could be 3, but I thought it was 2.
At its height, at the war's height, there were 6 aircraft battle groups in the Mediterranean Sea and Persian Gulf. The Theodore Roosevelt, the Truman, the Constellation, the Lincoln, Kitty Hawk, and Nimitz.
More than I thought. That's overkill.
Okay. Now, all of those, the Roosevelt, the Truman, the Constellation, Lincoln, Kitty Hawk, I think the only actual Nimitz class carrier was the Nimitz. The rest of them were pre Nimitz, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be. I'm not familiar. It's Navy. They give the Marines a ride. I don't pay attention.
That they do. Well, I know that there was also 23 amphibious task force groups, ships there that had over 10,000 Marines. And that was at the height of the war. Okay. And that would have been to support operations in both Afghanistan and in Iraq.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's very important. It's good that we have the threat to keep everyone calm because the area wants to escalate. And I think eventually it will. It's going to escalate.
And that's the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons why I do think we sent 2 carriers task forces into the Med, and why we sent our most advanced carrier task force into the Med. As for that simple reason, is to try to contain it to Israel. And pretty much if these other countries stay out of it, I think we will too. But I don't think the other countries are going to stay out of it.
We can't stay out of it. Again, they killed American citizens. They have American citizens hostage. We can't stay out of it.
Biden's already proved that he doesn't care about that.
Well, I know he doesn't, but it's an election year, which is one of the reasons why Marine Corps birthday. We know that 5th Marines, they weren't allowed to celebrate the Marine Corps birthday.
Yeah.
Word was that they were being deployed into Syria. They were being deployed into Iraq to shore up because Iran directly was attacking, or indirectly, through their terrorist organizations there. They were attacking American bases, American individuals, our soldiers. So they were activated to go there. At the same time, I was told by various sources that I trust that a couple of the higher echelon units, kind of like Delta forces, the SEALs, something along those lines, were being activated, but they weren't going to Syria or into Iraq. They were, now this is speculation here, and again, I can't confirm this, but from what I could understand of the conversation, they were actually being sent to go into Gaza to try and get the American hostages and get them released very quietly. Well, kind of quietly. People expected this to happen, but they're going in. So on one hand, you've got Blinken trying to make a deal. Biden is offering humanitarian aid, which is a violation of U.S. code because it's aiding and abetting a terrorist organization, Hamas. We're not supposed to do that. He's buying back hostages. We're not supposed to do that. So on one hand, he's doing that illegal diplomacy, and on the other hand, we have our forces in there trying to get those people out, probably in coordination with Mossad, who are also trying to get the hostages out. It's scary. It's scary. And the only reason why that's happening, because it didn't happen in Afghanistan, didn't happen in Ukraine, isn't happening in the Sudan. The only reason why they're doing it is people know the name Israel, and we're in the 2024 fortification. So Biden needs to look good.
Well, you're right. CENTCOM did cancel the Marine Corps birthday ball this year, and their reasoning was unforeseen operational commitments. And that pretty much says that they are gearing up for operations and have, in fact, initiated operations as a response. Now, if you weren't a Marine and you don't know Marines, you don't really understand the significance of the Marine Corps birthday ball.
True, most people don't.
Okay. And for them to cancel a birthday ball when we are, quote unquote, standing down from Afghanistan and operations in Iraq, means that there is something big happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is huge for them to just outright cancel the Marine Corps birthday ball, especially when it's being canceled by a 2-star Marine general.
Yeah.
Okay. History, honor, and tradition are huge in the Marine Corps. Probably more so than any other branch of service. And for them to, like I said, cancel the Marine Corps birthday ball means that something big is getting ready to kick off. Now, what that is going to entail has yet to be seen. But I'm sure that they are getting ready for something.
Again, I'm speculating, and knowing the publicly known information. We know Iran is attacking the U.S. in Syria. They're attacking our forces in Iraq. We know that Hamas has our citizens captive and being tortured as we speak. We know that Biden has not cared about Sudan or Afghanistan or Ukraine. So none of them, they're all off the table. The only thing everyone's talking about is Iran and Hamas, and mostly talking about pro-Palestine, which means Hamas. So and looking at who's the target group that he wants to talk to. Well, you're looking at the indoctrination in our colleges, like Columbia, like Cornell, like Harvard, like Cooper Union. What do we see there? Indoctrination that has led to the pro-Hamas attacks on Jewish individuals at our highest institutions. And these are the voters that Democrats rely on. This is their bread and butter. The academia, indoctrinated Democrat progressives, these are the people that they're constantly talking to. They're not talking to the average American. They're talking to them. Those are the people who they're trying to buy their votes by saying, oh, we'll eliminate your college debt. That's not from mom and pop working down the street in, any mom and pop store, working as a salesperson, a waiter, or a cook. They're not talking to you. They're talking to the kids who went to college, who got indoctrinated at Wesleyan, the guys who went to Harvard and Yale. They're talking to them. That's who their base is. And this is why I think he's appealing to their base.
Well, and I want to actually show you something. Okay. When this kicked off, people don't understand. Well, people that follow us do understand a lot of what was going on when this all kicked off, especially what was going on here in the United States. Now, this is from Al Jazeera, which is a more of a pro-Palestinian newspaper than they are pro-Israeli. Okay, because they are literally an Arab news. Okay, U.S. Capitol Police clash with protesters calling for Gaza war ceasefire.
Democrats. Those are Democrats. But
Yep.
go on. The protesters
Police
are
used pepper
Democrats.
spray and fire projectiles containing chemical and irritants on quote unquote non-violent protesters in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's not what video shows. They were violent as hell, which is why they got arrested.
Okay. Police in riot gear clashed with demonstrators calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza war outside the headquarters of the DNC in Washington, D.C. Okay, first off, they didn't mention that they were actually storming the Capitol.
Yes.
And I'm going to say that they stormed the Capitol because that's exactly what they did. In fact, they shut down the Capitol.
Yes,
on that day.
Because of that.
Okay, and it was for more than just 3 hours.
Yes, and there were members of our Congress actively involved in meetings at the DNC headquarters at that moment. So they were attacking our government.
Yes. Okay, and a lot of people on the left, especially people like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, etc., the squad, would like you to believe that this was nothing more than peaceful protesters. Except over 300 people were arrested that day for peaceful, quote unquote, peaceful protesting. Okay?
There's video. There is active video.
Well, that's just it. There is video. They literally shut down the Capitol building, made it impossible for any business to be conducted at the Capitol building. They blocked means of egress from the Capitol building in case for any emergency reason. Okay, if there was fire, etc., whatever. So they prevented egress from the Capitol building. They prevented people from coming into the Capitol building other than people that were actually involved in this protest. Shut down various meetings in both the House and the Senate that were going on at the time. Shut down hearings that were happening in the Senate.
So call it what you're not saying it. You're alluding to it, but let's call it what the Democrats define all of that as.
Well,
was
they
an
define
insurrection.
it exactly as what they also defined January 6th as, an insurrection.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is by the Democrat definition.
Now,
jump in
this not
anytime.
only happened in our Capitol building, and Michael's talked about it already some. This happened all across the United States. It was happening at university campuses all across the United States. It was also happening in our high schools across the United States. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, is where this has been happening. This was also happening at our high schools. And right now there is an investigation going on into 7 different schools. 6 of them are major universities. One of them is a K through 12 school in Kansas. Okay, now where did we get to the point where we were actively supporting terrorists that literally call us the Great Satan?
You're talking about Iran.
Exactly.
Or you could be talking about the Antifa organization, Defenders of the Atlanta Forest, who are trying to burn down Atlanta again. So it could be them, but I think you're talking about Iran.
Well, I am talking about Iran. Literally, Iran has stated they want to wipe the United States off the map. Now, obviously, they don't have the resources or capabilities to be able to do so, but that is what they claim. And they claim that they will. Palestine has always had an active hatred, primarily Hamas, towards the United States. And that is because of our relationship with Israel. Several Arab states have a big problem with the United States because of our relationship with Israel. Now, the majority of the time when Israel is actively defending its borders, its sovereign territory, the United States lets them do what they do. And typically we don't get involved. This time, as we've already alluded to, we are getting involved a lot more than we have in the past. We are actively intercepting missiles that have been fired from Yemen and other countries into Israel and have actively shot them down. I believe there is talks of us actually putting boots on the ground in Israel in order to protect American citizens.
After the fact.
Right.
After this conflict ends. The conversations that I've read about, that I'm aware of, the conversation is as part of a UN peacekeeping force in Gaza, after this conflict is over, then the U.S., either directly through NATO or the UN, or more likely, just as a joint exercise with Iran, will be putting U.S. troops in Gaza itself.
Now, Palestine has never been an actual state. Okay. Nope. Palestine has never had a country. And it's, let's see, when did the U.S. or the UN?
When did they recognize Palestine?
Yeah.
74, if I remember correctly. It was under Arafat and Jimmy Carter. It was the time that they did those accords. Because they had Yasser Arafat was making the deal with Israel and Egypt. Anwar Sadat. So that would put it about 74 to 76, somewhere in that range, if I remember correctly.
1988.
88?
Yep.
Oh, it's way after the PLO. Okay.
Okay. So December 15th, 1988, the state of Palestine's Declaration of Independence. As of November 1988. was acknowledged by General Assembly Resolution 43 to 177 on the 29th of November, 2012. The General Assembly resolution passed, upgrading Palestine to a non-member observer state status in the United Nations.
Crazy.
So it wasn't until 2012 that the UN actually started recognizing Palestine as even a state.
Because they shouldn't. They're not a state.
Okay. Now, given that, okay, the quote unquote state of Palestine is actually an occupied territory. It isn't even a full blood. It's not even a recognized country. Gaza is an occupied territory. The West Bank is an occupied territory. They are not any of it a state. They aren't a recognized country. In fact, most of the world does not recognize them as an actual state or country.
The Arab nations don't recognize it as a country.
In fact, actually, most of the Arab nations despise Palestine. Okay, because as we mentioned earlier, Palestine is formed because of the people that other Arab nations rejected. And that's where the state of Palestine or the Palestinian group came from.
It is aggravating to me that there is more support in the United States, in our colleges, in our bluer than blue progressive cities, than there is in all of the Middle East for Hamas and their active terrorism. We have people in California. CNN tried to cover up from this is how bad it is that CNN this week was covering up that the pro-Hamas protesters attacked Jewish protesters, pro-Israel protesters, people who wanted the hostages, American and international, released as instead of being human shields to release them. And what happens? The pro-Palestinian group, just like they tried to do at Cooper Union, they decided to attack the pro-Israel groups. This guy in LA, he hit the protester, one of the protesters, with a megaphone, which caused the man to die. CNN said, "Oh, don't worry, that's not real. He just fell down and died. We don't know how it happened." Really? Because he's got a big dent in his head from a megaphone that happened to be done by the pro-Hamas protester, who then got arrested for homicide. And CNN knew it. They lied. Why? Because there's more support for Hamas, an Israeli and an Iranian-backed terrorist organization in the United States than there is in anywhere other part of the world. This is not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. Sorry. I get worked up on this. And I see you there, Frank. Jump in anytime.
Now,
what you guys are all talking about is something you don't want me opining on.
You cannot be more angry or more pronounced in your point of view than me.
It's I am. Look, I'm sitting here trying to figure out the strategy of our government during this whole thing. Knowing who the players are, knowing what their positions really are, I look and I say to myself, most of what I see them doing as far as from a militaristic point of view is par for the course. It's the expected the expected thing that they should do, from the carriers to this to that to, everything is right. This is routine. They're not doing anything. They're not really. I don't care who it is. They're going to follow that because, let's face it, you already have enough calls right now up on Capitol Hill for Biden's head on a platter with impeachment talk and everything else like that. If he doesn't go through the steps that he's going through now it's another example of dereliction of duty. It's 70 years of diplomatic relationships with the only democratic state in the entire Middle East is being, upheaved and everything else. It's more ammunition. It's political gamesmanship as far as whatever's happening. If you really wanted to stop the attacks in Israel, put a couple American bases in Israel. Because now you don't have missiles being launched. Now you're launching missiles at known American targets in Israel. If you're going to kill Americans who are living or working or visiting in Israel, well, that's collateral damages as far as the terror is concerned, because those little brainless rockets they fly over, well, they have no idea who they're going to hit anyway. If it happens to be an American, so be it. If they happen to take Americans prisoners, so be it. Remember that Americans living in Israel is one of the only few countries in the world that America will allow dual citizenship from. Mm-hmm. So if you have a hostage taken over there and you have Hamas says, oh, well, they have American paperwork and they have Israeli paperwork. Well, they don't care about the American paperwork as far as they're concerned. It's still an Israeli. So it doesn't matter. They don't care that they took an American hostage. If you had American bases there, like say, okay, well, how do you have an American base in the far? Well, we have American bases in countries all over the world, and we have American bases in countries that are hostile to the United States. Guantanamo Bay, for one. If we had the kind of relationship where we had not just an embassy, but a base, a strategically located base or two, you wouldn't see as many rockets coming in, because now Hamas says, okay, now you're launching directly at American interest, not at American allies, but American interests. If we wanted this to stop, we could make it stop.
Given that Iran is behind all of this, I don't think that would stop them. They don't care.
At least to a degree. Listen, if you want to make the shit stop, if you want to make it stop, you target the leaders of Hamas, you target the leaders of Hezbollah, and you turn them to dust wherever they are. No, I'm not talking about the guy who is directing the 12 guys in pickup trucks where to stage their mortars. I'm talking about the guy living in the beautiful silk suit, who's living over there in Saudi Arabia, who's calling the shots over his satellite phone.
They're doing that. Well, Israel is getting that done. It takes a little while. They're not exactly standing out and jumping up and down saying they did it.
Well, they know what do you say? You take these people out. If Israel can end this whole thing pretty easily, they've been very, very, very contained, self-contained for a long, long time. Maybe it's time they. I love you said before what America will let them do.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to get to the point where America doesn't have the power or the authority to dictate to Israel what they'll let them do, and Israel is going to do what needs to be done. And what needs to be done are things that, if I said here, I'll wind up having FBI guys at my door, or we'll wind up getting booted off. And it needs to be done.
No, I understand. I'm just afraid that we are seeing students, the future leaders of industry and politics. They are being indoctrinated, and we see this at multiple colleges and multiple institutions.
Right. Listen, these are the same listen, you have this cycle with every conflict. Every time there's something wrong, the people that are complaining now are the same. Every single conflict, you have the Democrat students that go over and do the stuff. In Vietnam, it wasn't conservative students that were attacking the Johnson administration over his escalation of Vietnam. All right, it was your peaceniks, it was your leftist students that were doing that. Vietnam, they escalated for financial purposes because Johnson was getting rich. So was so many of the rest of the Democrats over there.
There's a big difference, I think, between the Weather Underground, which a terrorist organization, absolutely, who later went on to coach and groom Barack Obama. But the Weather Underground, Bill Ayers, there's, I think, no real comparison to how he groomed one man to what we see now, where we see Cornell University grooming their students to be recognized terrorists, not just part of an underground group, openly in front of the daylight, openly a terrorist. We are seeing that they are actively promoting the support of terrorism to the point that not only is the Department of Education investigating this, but we have stories from across the country, multiple, of how they are actively attacking individuals because of their religion.
Well, listen, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, when you had these radicals out there doing this kind of thing, there was pushback from the average American. There was pushback from American corporation. There was pushback from American institution. There was pushback from American media, tradition. We had a nuclear family back then. We don't have any of these things anymore. Now we've got all of these massive consortiums are all ideologically on the same page with the ones who are out there rioting today, the ones who are pulling down posters of kidnapped people, pulling down pictures of beheaded babies. They're the ones that are when New York City cops are getting locked inside of Grand Central Station because there's 500 rioters outside that are preventing them from leaving. These people have created, listen, this is what they've wanted all of these years. This is the climax that they've wanted to do. The radicals from the 60s are now teachers in the college, and this is their offspring. They couldn't get them in the crib, so they're getting them in the schools. And the fact that they're teaching them younger and younger, this is we have a completely lost generation that is being taught with the absence of true history. They're not being taught what history is. They're being taught what ideologies are. They're being taught based on slogans and PR campaigns. They're not being taught on history. They're being taught on what's hip and what's cool and what Hollywood is accepting.
Well,
and eventually, this is all going to come to pass. And here's the bottom line. If you're so angry that Israel is defending themselves against Hamas, use some of your student loan money, get an airplane ticket, fly over there with that silly flag, wrap it around yourself, go into the Gaza Strip, and tell them that you're there to volunteer to fight against Israel. Please, go ahead and do it, because your voice means nothing here. Maybe your actions will mean more over there. They won't do it because there's a generation of cowards. They're a generation of cowards.
Well, they're cowards that, just like what we saw this week, again, what are those cowards doing? The Defenders of the Atlanta Forest, which is an Antifa organization, far left, what did they do earlier this year? They went into Atlanta, tried to burn down parts of the city because people didn't obey them, and say that that trying to teach cops how to better be cops, how to teach the fire department to be better fire department, to have a better EMS, well, that wasn't progressive enough. And so what did they do this week? They did it again. They went into Atlanta and burned down 12 construction vehicles. Why? Then this is arson. They committed acts of arson in the middle of the night. And I know this because it was on their website. Now, most of the left-leaning news media didn't want to even share this story with the public. The few that did cover it say it's some unknown. We have no idea who burned down and committed these acts of arson about this construction that is going to help the people of Atlanta, that was paid for by the taxes of the people of Atlanta. No, the mainstream media is saying we have no idea who did it. Meanwhile, it's on Antifa, the Defenders of the Atlanta Forest. It's on their website. They said it directly that they admitted they did it.
Well, that don't mean anything. They're just acting as copycats. You can't be sure. That's inadmissible. Whatever they said, it can't be used in court anyway because they weren't aware of their Miranda rights. Listen, you know what the best thing that can happen in this country for a while? You know all those defund the police movements? Maybe the police need to defund themselves for about a month and let Joe Citizen go out there and start handling business the way it should be handled.
Well, you can't do that. In New York City, we're going to lose we're losing 5 classes of police officers so we can pay for an illegal alien to go and sit in a hotel at $60,000 a year, $60,000 a year. And we're asking more of them to come into New York City, as literally Eric Adams is saying, well, we're just going to lose our police and our sanitation department and our schools. We can't pay for the kids, the teachers. So we're going to have more illegal aliens, and they're still coming. We're not going to stop any of them
until
we just don't have anything.
Until the people stand up and say that enough is enough, it's going to continue to happen. And just to let you know,
been saying that since we started this.
I know, but you, when you talk about it, Mike, you talk about it a little. Your intention is more civic minded than mine is. But I'm going to tell you right now why I'm afraid that your civil minded, methodologies may be ineffective in the future. Right, as of right now, is because as of this week, the number of illegal aliens pouring over the southern border is outpacing American birth rate.
Oh, I believe that.
We are now bringing in
I want to
more illegals than we are growing Americans.
I want to go back a little bit, and I want to give people some real context as to what's going on with this. Okay, a lot of people, Michael, I'm not sure if you're quite old enough to remember this. I barely remember it. And I don't think, Frank, if you're old enough, you were really young when this
Frank's
happened.
the baby. Yes, folks. Frank is the baby of the group, believe it or not.
Yes.
Munich Olympics, 1972.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I know I was alive then. Yeah. I was about 4.
Although I was alive barely and can't remember it as being, although I do remember what's his face? They're dead.
You're lucky if you remember a bottle. Go on.
From that age. The thing I remember from that mostly was the phrase, "They're dead. They're all dead."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the report was after, when they stormed the plane. But yes, I'm very well versed on what happened with the Munich Olympics.
Yeah. Okay. That was an attack during a time when the world is supposed to come together for peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's been times when various nations have boycotted going to the Olympics because one nation or another nation was there. But there is never in the history of the Olympics, be prior to 1972 or after 1972, with the exception of what Olympics had the bomber? Was that the Atlanta Games?
I think that was Atlanta. 80 Atlanta. Yeah.
Yes.
It was Atlanta.
Okay. Those are the only 2 times when there has been an actual attack on the Olympics. This one in 72 was literally carried out by Palestine against the Israeli Olympic team. And it was quite an event. It was televised worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the type of characters that we are dealing with. Okay. This isn't something that just started. This is something that's been going on since biblical times, but it has been escalated. And the Jewish people really just want to be left alone. That's all they want. But the Hamas and other groups want to completely eradicate all Jewish people from this earth.
Iran, let's say Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis.
It's not just Iran, though.
It's not just them, but that's one of the primary. That's the primary one. All of those organizations, all those terrorist groups, they all are. That's Iran. Every single one of them. And it's kind of like we don't know this.
You've got Yemen, you've got Jordan, you've got Egypt.
Jordan and Lebanon are the Hezbollah. You've got West Bank and in Egypt and Sinai, you have Hamas. You have the Houthis in Yemen and also in the United Arab Emirates. You've got Iran itself. You have Iran factions that are working in Syria and Iraq. I mean, this isn't crazy. I mean, there are other groups. There's the PKK, but that's in Turkey. They don't have anything to do with this. So there are other terrorist organizations. Not saying there aren't. There's in the United States, you have Antifa, you have Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, you have the Defenders of the Atlanta Forest. So, I mean, they exist, but what's happening right now is mostly Iran.
Israel has never really known a time of peace.
No.
Ever. Because they've always been under attack by some Arab group. Always. And that's all they want. And for people not to get that, not to understand that, is very telling. And they try to make Israel out to be the bad guy. And so forth. And I'm sorry, knowing the history, knowing what I've seen in my 56 years, everybody tries to bully on Israel. And as a result, Israel's got some of the best trained military on the face of the earth. Okay. It's not a huge military, but it is one of the best trained militaries on the earth.
Has to be. They're constantly under attack.
Well, that's it exactly.
I have no problem with Israel. My bigger concern, quite honestly, isn't about Israel Hamas. Israel's going to beat the hell out of Hamas, and they should. I mean, they're doing exactly what they should do. They're walking through Gaza, and they're finding, rockets under children's beds. Now, are they always 100% right? No, the hospital. They really didn't find anything there. But they have found tunnels. They have found rockets. They have found members of Hamas, and their weapons of war. They are clearing out a large number of them. Good. Now here in the United States,
this is one of the main methods that Hamas uses to try to drum up opposition to Israel, is they will locate strategic military targets in civilian areas.
They pick hospitals and
they
schools.
pick hospitals, they pick schools, they pick
this is why that's why they don't let their civilian population leave. Because if the civilian population that really didn't want any part of it was going to not want any part of it, they would get the hell out. But they tell them,
And I also want to remind everybody,
here as a shield.
I want to remind everybody
Mhm.
that before Israel started its offensive against Hamas, it literally gave days for civilians to leave Gaza. They again this week urged any civilians to get out of Gaza. Okay, Israel doesn't want collateral casualties. They want to target Hamas and get rid of them. Okay, Hamas is the one that is causing the issues.
Well, yes. And we have U.S. colleges teaching kids to be part of this.
Yes, we do.
The threat is moving. Let's be honest with each other. The threat is moving from organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and they're becoming Columbia. They're becoming Cornell, Harvard, Wesleyan. That's the new home of anti-American terrorist cells. It's not white supremacy. That's really not the threat to America. It isn't. The threat to America is Antifa, autonomous zones, and colleges that are teaching kids to support global terrorism, to support genocides. That's the real danger going forward.
The attacks that Hamas did started on a major Jewish holiday, which is, again, another means that Hezbollah often uses. For their attacks. And again, this is stuff that the mainstream media, the Democrats, and so forth are not telling people. Okay, this was a major religious observance that the Jewish people were getting ready to undertake until Hamas literally went in and started killing civilians.
Do you know why that is? Do you know why the media never brings up when these things take place on religious holidays? Because somebody might ask the question, what does that holiday mean?
Yeah.
What does Rosh Hashanah mean? What does Hanukkah mean?
Well,
and any of the Jewish holidays, because you know why they don't want to answer that question? Because then they would have to say, well, 3,000 years ago, 1,500 years before the prophet Muhammad even existed, in the land of the Israelis, this event took place. In exploring and explaining the Jewish holidays, you have to explore and explain the Jewish faith. And to explore and explain the Jewish faith gives credence to the fact that the Jews have been in that part of the world since before Islam was even a thought.
Yep.
And that undermines the 2 billion people that are out there saying that Israel has no claim to the land. Israel has all the claim to the land.
And
They have all the claim to it. Everything that's been built in Israel has been built on stones laid by Jews 3,000 and 4,000 years ago.
We're big on, and I don't say it's necessarily wrong, but we're big at trying to say we were so horrible with our brief period of slavery. A lot of people don't realize is the Jewish people were the slaves of Israel that built the pyramids. I mean, the slaves of Egypt that built the pyramids. They were the Jewish people were the slaves that actually brought about a lot of the Egyptian wonders. And these are things that nobody wants to acknowledge when we talk about slavery. All we want to acknowledge is what happened here in the United States. And they fail to acknowledge the history of slavery prior to that.
Well,
And
not only is it a matter of trying to ignore the history of slavery beyond that, but what that is they're also trying to ignore the prescience of slavery today,
mhm,
and the fact that there's hundreds of millions of people in this world today that are still being enslaved. They
and
want
primarily in Middle Eastern and African countries.
right. They
70
want
million.
they want to take slavery and turn that into a purely European American tradition, and they want to completely eradicate the thought of slavery anywhere else in the world at any other time in the world, and lay that strictly on the on the backs of Anglo-Saxons, Europeans, Americans, and completely just diminish any mention of it anywhere else, because it would have to mean that we would have to reflect on where the slaves came from that was sold to the slave traders that brought them to the Americas. Where did
Mhm.
they come from? How did they wind up being enslaved? Who captured them? Who sold them? Who provided the slaves to the slave trade? As you guys speak about the Marine Corps birthday, and everybody's heard the Marine Corps theme, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Yep.
What does Tripoli have to do with the Marine Corps? Well, it's because there were American citizens that were aboard ships being taken hostage outside of Tripoli, and they were being enslaved.
Mhm.
Thousands of Americans being enslaved by Muslim slave traders, who at the same time were the same people that was selling slaves to come back into the Caribbean. And that's how the slave trade came up. But they don't want to do. They want to eradicate any history of slavery anywhere in the world, because it exposes them for what they are, culpable, and not only culpable, but still and entirely guilty today. They don't want to talk about that. They don't
Right.
want to talk about that.
Well, that's why they cover up. We call slavery today human trafficking or sex trafficking, which are, again, no different. It's still slavery.
Yeah, culturally
Yeah.
more acceptable. It's a more acceptable term. The same way we don't call them, pedophiles anymore. We call them minor attracted persons.
Yeah, and we just like to use. They use a lot of flowery language that sounds nice, so that you can go to sleep at night not realizing, or not, if you don't think about it, if you don't stop and think about it, you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound so bad. Can't be that harmful. Can't be that bad. There are more slaves today, by over 500% more slaves today than at the height of slavery in the United States in 1862. There are 70 million people. The estimate is at a minimum. The minimum estimate you will find in the world is 70 million people are slaves, predominantly coming from Africa, then followed up by the Middle East and Southeast Asia. These are the numbers that exist out there. This is the reality. And of course, the United States is one of the bigger recipients of many of these slaves because of the open borders and the means by which people are getting in. The coyotes aren't just putting people, I mean, we've got the, what do you call them, the sweatshops. They're not being filled with people who are like, oh, yeah, I volunteer. Those are slaves. But again, this is something that we're seeing from the intelligentsia. They are the ones who are changing the words. They're changing the meanings. They're changing the way that we look at these things so that they can continue to do these things. the reason why Jerry Nadler is saying Antifa doesn't exist, as Antifa members are killing American citizens, why we have our colleges that are supporting Hamas but calling it pro-Palestinians, because there is no Palestine, and they know that. If you're a college professor and you're teaching people you should be pro-Palestine, and you don't know that there is no nation called Palestine, then you don't deserve to be a teacher, do you? But, we're going to gloss past that because it helps to push the message. And what's the message? America is bad. America needs to change. Get rid of the Constitution. Get rid of the First Amendment. Get rid of the Second Amendment and change everything, because a small group of elites want you, because they want it. So you have to obey. They have a feeling, so you have to have that feeling too. I'm sorry, I reject that. I refuse to accept that. I will not be part of that process. I will call them out. And if that means that I'm the one who's standing out going, oh, yeah, Hamas is a terrorist organization and I do not support them, and if that gets me ostracized, I am happy to have that ostracization come at me, because I'm not going to support slavery, indoctrination. I'm not going to support oppression. And that's exactly what Hamas is doing. That's what Harvard is doing. That is what Columbia, Cornell University, Binghamton University, I will call them out by their names, because they are promoting evil in the world.
No, and that's because their benefactors are paying the bills too. The benefactors who are providing the money to these big schools, all the private donors are all of the same ilk. They're all of the same mind. They're all of the same Epstein client list base that they have there. So you have the perfect storm. You have school administrators who will do whatever the dollar says. And then when you have kids who are so brainwashed and gullible that they're going to follow what the dollar tells them to do, you wind up having a group of willing participants who, I laughed. I saw an ad that Pfizer is looking for 1 million people to conduct research on for an experimental new drug. I'm like, hey, listen, didn't you guys just have 1 billion people that you just had a research project on? What do you need us for now? It's the same thing with the colleges. They're happy to go along because that's who's paying the bills. Eventually, when all of these leftists, who are funding it, die off, then maybe there'll be a cultural shift in the schools. Maybe there'll be a cultural shift, because at some point, schools in the 80s and 90s actually focused more on economics and industry and stuff like that, when greed was good, when they started having that Wall Street mentality. It wasn't until Barry got in there that they really started that the hard left turn was more visible.
Well, they felt like they had won. I mean, look at what's happening right now, because they are in an aspect, they are winning. As an example, we have open borders where they literally welded the gates open in Arizona, letting in well over what's now estimated at about 8 million illegal aliens into our country in 2.5 years, which is an accomplishment. It is a record. You have this massive influx is destroying the infrastructure of cities and states. We're talking about Chicago. We're talking about California. We're talking about New York City, to the point, again, in New York City, we are going to cut sanitation, education, and police. So your kids aren't going to be taught. So they're going to be ruined for their lives because they're not going to get a proper education. Everyone is in danger. New York City, 8 million people. You're talking about sanitation. So disease is going to become more rampant, and it's going to become more widespread. Obamacare is not going to stop it. When every single city rat is running around with fleas that may pass around bubonic plague. That's the reality of the situation. And then you have, in this uneducated, disease-ridden location, what else are you adding to that? Oh, more crime, because there are less police. There is less, and for the police that are there, they're overworked, can't get to each of the crime locations. The criminals know that. They take advantage of that. They know that the cops can't be everywhere. There's fewer of them. And by the way, they get bail reform and social justice. So they have a revolving door on walking out, like in California, where, oh, did you steal less than $1,000? Well, keep going on your way. Oh, you're black, so we have to reduce the Black, Hispanic, you're a person of color, you're a woman. So we have to reduce your crime. We have to give you a revolving door. Go back out there. And this time, just promise not to do it. And you just keep doing it. I'm telling you, they are looking to whittle away and destroy every aspect of our country. And they want us to just nod, keep your head down and say, go right ahead. No. How dare you? How dare you? I will scream at the top of my lungs. How dare you? Because I'm not going to let you just take it all. And then they try and tell us, oh, by the way, when a bunch of Democrats in Washington, D.C. try to break down the doors, they're stopping the operation of the government and they're getting arrested by the hundreds. Oh, that's peaceful. But me showing up and saying, by the way, I don't support Hamas. I'm the bad guy. Oh, my God, that's evil. We need police officers. We got to shut him down. Oh,
And
go ahead.
if you guys haven't noticed, I'm sharing Amnesty International's website.
Yeah.
Okay. The protests, quote unquote, peaceful protests that occurred on October 17th in our capital and at various universities across the nation, in response to a global intifada, was in support of this group, which has 388 results on the Amnesty International website. Okay, the most recent being November 7th, 2023. Updated on 14th of November. It was confirmed that Vivian Silver had been killed in the October 7th attack by Hamas and other armed groups on her home in Be'er Kibbutz. Her family initially believed she had been abducted by armed groups and was being held hostage in Gaza. March 18th, 2019. Hamas must end brutal crackdown against protests and rights defenders. March 18th, 2019. Hamas must end brutal crackdown against protests and rights. Okay, same one. February 25th, 2019. Journalists facing prison term for exposing corruption in Hamas-controlled ministry. Palestine, Hamas must, this is May 24th, 2017. Hamas must urgently halt executions of 3 men sentenced after unfair trial. April 6, 2017. Hamas executes 3 civilians tried in Gaza military courts.
Yeah, it's an evil.
It goes on and on and on.
They're an evil organization filled with evil people. And there is no reason why we should support them. There is no reason we should give them humanitarian aid. And if they want humanitarian aid, fantastic. Release all the hostages. Stop fighting. Release all the hostages. Don't wait for Israel to do it. Don't try and get anyone else to pressure anyone. Just stop. Stop fighting. Give back every single hostage. Then we'll be then we can have the conversation about whether or not you get humanitarian aid. In the meantime, the colleges can shut the hell up. And if any of their teachers want to come out and say, hey, we're in favor of terrorism, that they want to support global genocides, guess what? You don't need to be a teacher anymore. Do not take my tax money. End the funding to that school, which is what the Department of Education is now starting to investigate. And sadly, that investigation is going to take 3 years, if not 4. How do I know that? Because the Binghamton University riot over Dr. Art Laffer, over the fact that 3 students at Binghamton University decided to publicly said that they were conservatives, and they were surrounded by 200 of the far left protesters, members of the progressive leaders of tomorrow, including city council, Binghamton city council members, were there on video. There is no question about it. And that investigation is still going on with the Department of Education. That was 2019. It's 2023. That's 4 years. Tells you how long it's going to take for them to deal with this Hamas issue, if ever. We have a problem. And in the meantime, we're wasting our time in our country with MILF Manor, the housewives of who gives a damn. We're busy watching these schools and going, oh, well, maybe they should support Hamas. I don't know. I'm very confused about that. As we are watching our cities fall apart, the infrastructure is being destroyed by illegal aliens that they just keep inviting in. They can't take care of the ones we have. We have 140,000 in New York City. Can't take care of them. But don't close the border. Don't stop letting them in. Keep on sending them here. We don't have the $12 billion that we need to take care of them, but send them on in. And while all of that is happening, people are then turning around going, but guess what? But we kicked the can down the road. Mike Johnson was able to get the continuing resolution. The government isn't going to shut down. We're just going to spend more money that we don't have. We're going to waste more money that we don't have. We're never going to get a budget done. Isn't that great? I'm sorry. I am not pleased. Not by anybody in our government at this moment.
No, absolutely not. And speaking of our government, okay, the attacks on Donald Trump continue.
Of course.
But there was a ruling that came out of the state of Colorado this week that Trump must remain on the ballot in Colorado. Okay. That was ordered by the judges hearing the case, and the judge ordered that Trump must remain a candidate as a candidate for the 2024 presidential election and must remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado.
Oh, that must have gone over really well.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Oh, in case you guys didn't happen to see it, you know what else happened today?
What was that?
Mike Lindell won his case against Dominion.
Lindell won?
Yep.
No, I didn't know that.
Lindell won the case against Dominion. The judge, an Obama appointee, even went so far as to say that there was more than enough evidence to substantiate that there was probable voter fraud. And that even
also,
they came into it in that particular case, that it will be going to trial, and that information will be made available to the public because it'll be a matter of disclosure.
Wait a minute. Where is I don't see that being reported anywhere.
Where the hell where did I see it?
Newsweek has it.
Oh, and former Representative Kitzinger is still out there crying because he says that McCarthy shoulder blocked him a couple of times while he was on Capitol Hill.
I don't. Why am I missing the article? Oh, here it is. Yeah, Mike Lindell. Oh,
I got it on Newsweek.
Yeah, I just found it. So let me.
So there are some small victories taking place in the sense of common sense.
Did you see that Bridgeport, Connecticut primary election was overturned and a new vote ordered?
Well, we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, we discussed that one last week. Jan points out she saw it too. I saw it too. They're saying the charges will be unlikely for Biden in his classified documents case.
Yeah, of course.
Which means there should be no charges for Trump either.
Yeah. Oh, well, but you remember he hired the chief of police for himself. So why, the attorney general is not going to press charges against the president of the United States that hired him.
Shocking. Shocking.
Now, Peter sent me an article. I haven't been able to just switch it back and forth, but a woman just received. All right, here's apparently what the story is. She's a concealed carry holder or has a FOIA card, a permission to own a firearm card. Her kid takes the gun out of the house, goes to school, and shoots somebody with it. During the course of the investigation, the district attorney finds out that the mother smokes pot. So now she's getting 21 months in jail for lying on her 4473 when she bought the gun, saying that she was a drug user and she clicked no, and now she's getting 21 months in jail for it. It's the exact same crime that Hunter Biden committed that he's saying he shouldn't serve any time for. So just to show you how that goes. Now, granted, Hunter Biden doesn't have a kid that took a gun and went to school and shot anybody, but that's beside the point. That's a completely separate entity. The gun Hunter Biden had was just thrown in a garbage pail outside of a school. That was just a different thing altogether. But oh, Vass, anybody in your source give you any information on this subpoena that was handed to Pelosi this week?
No, I didn't hear. I didn't hear anything.
I heard that she got subpoenaed, but I haven't been able to find what it's for.
No one has. That's why I was asking if Vass may have some information. Apparently, somebody from her staff went to the well of the Capitol and said that Nancy Pelosi, for whatever reason that they decided to make this public there, I don't know. Maybe because they thought maybe it wouldn't. They have to make it public, but they figured this might be the one spot that if only C-SPAN was covering it, who gives a shit? But he was subpoenaed in a criminal case about a financial institution. And this took place 2 days prior to MC Hammerman getting convicted for beating her husband up.
Yeah, there was that. She was blaming Tim Pool about that. Yeah.
All right. But here's the thing. The jury was already in deliberation by the time the subpoena notification was made. So she wasn't going to be subpoenaed for that case. This is an entirely different case that she got a subpoena for. And they went out and they said it. Her spokesperson didn't come out and call a press conference or anything else like that. She came out to the podium in the House and said, Mrs. Pelosi received the subpoena, and that was it. Now, they didn't specify what the case was or anything else like that. I got some information from somebody saying it was
she's been subpoenaed for documents.
What did you hear, Frank?
That it was in relation to a financial crime.
Wouldn't surprise me. You know
Right.
who it could be? It could be connected to Eric Adams, who's under investigation for many of his donations, and he did receive the donations from the DNC, and that would have been under Pelosi.
Yeah, but she does.
They're being very tight-lipped about.
She's not going to be the one who's going to dictate where to the DNC where donations get made.
She could if it's under. She also has the House PAC, which is also hers.
Right.
Oh, hold on a second.
It just.
This is a federal criminal case.
Yes.
So this wasn't tied to the attack on her husband.
No, I'm having some. I'm I'm having some thought that this might have something to do with some insider information, which would be pretty friggin' cool. You know, $180,000 a year does not build you that kind of wealth.
Well, if they're going into that, I mean, there are decades of stuff. I mean, did you see how much money she made off of wind energy going back? I think this was in 2014. She was making bank off of wind energy. I mean, she had bought in, literally, she bought $250,000 of wind energy stocks a week before she started promoting wind energy as the solution to America's energy problems. And I believe it was 2014 when she did that. Made stupid amounts of money. Matter of fact, I think she owns some of the stocks still to this day. It's gone up, it's skyrocketed. When Obama decided to do all of the loans to the green energy companies. Yeah.
Well, let's say Pelosi will be dead and buried before she's ever charged with anything or serves a day in prison for any of her crimes. I mean, she's what, 117 now?
Well, she's more protected than Andrew Cuomo, and he's coming back. He got all of his charges dropped, and he's coming back. And he just admitted to actually defrauding the federal government. So she can't be worse off than him.
Isn't that amazing?
What? That he defrauded the government, or that he admitted it, or that he got away with it?
No, that the Democrat politicians are just completely and totally immune from everything.
Unless you're Eric Adams, because there's more raids into his stuff.
Yeah, but he also decided to question the gift horse.
He made the mistake of actually talking about something he was told not to. We've heard this from Georgia State Representative Maynor. We've heard this from Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson. We've heard this from a dozen so far in the last year and a half. We've had about a dozen Democrats who became Republicans or independents. And in each and every single one of their cases, their public statement is, as a member of the Democratic Party, elected official, you are expected to be a parrot. You say whatever the party line is, you vote whatever the party line is. And if you don't, then they punish you. We know this. We saw this with Dianne Feinstein. June 27th of 2023, we know that all the Democrats in the United States Senate were invited, were told to be at a dinner with Move On, who told them directly that if they mention anything about any politician other than Joe Biden for the 2024 election, that they would lose all of their funding for re-election, and they would be facing a challenger. By the way, someone did do that. Guess who it was? Joe Manchin. And Joe Manchin is no longer going to be running. He's out in 2024. So
yeah, and now he's also out there as of yesterday saying that he's not ruling out a run for the presidency himself.
Yeah,
Joe Manchin is the most useless wet noodle politician I have ever seen in my life. This guy is a wishy-washy, useless, just stuff money in the pack politician. He is just worthless. And I do not understand for the life of me why Republicans keep, for the life of this guy's political career, keep hanging their hat on the hope that Joe Manchin might one day save the day, because he's always the last holdout vote for whatever bullshit radical left-wing ideal is out there. He's always the holdout vote. Well, he's a blue No, he's a green. And I'm not talking about green as in recycling. I'm talking about green as in cash. How much cash are you going to put into the coffer, and then I'll vote for the one thing you want me to vote for? This is a guy, if you remember, came politically noted for saying he was going to put a bullet in Obamacare, and on his ad has his Model 70 Winchester rifle in whatever the hell caliber it was, and he's got Obamacare, all 8,200 pages of it, sitting on a fence post, and he shoots the Obamacare. And Obamacare is going to be dead on arrival when I get to the Senate. And what did he do? Voted for it. And these freaking idiot conservatives out there, these fellow fence sitters, I'm not even going to call them conservatives. I think conservatives are smart enough to know. But these middle of the road Republicans like Joe Manchin, he's holding out. We can sway him. We can bring him to. No, you can't. You can't. He's never coming out of the dark side. He's going to say he's going to run so he can shift slightly to the right and slightly to the right of Kennedy in the hopes that maybe he finds some sort of path, and then he's going to just do exactly what all the rest of them do. Fish for funds and vote for the money.
No, he has no path. Independents have no path. I was just at an event, in fact, talking about RFK. I was at an RFK event on Tuesday. So was Reuters, by the way. No one in the news media talked about this. You would not know that it happened in downtown Manhattan next to Baruch College, that there was a RFK event with Black and Hispanic leaders. You'd be amazed. But even though Reuters was there, no one talked about it. So if Manchin wants to try and go down this independent, I'll run for president, forget about it. RFK is better liked and has more money and is more established. And he's almost invisible, even though he's still getting 22% while he's invisible because he's got a media blackout behind him. I actually covered the event, which is more than what the New York Times, who got invited to the same event. New York Times didn't show up. The Wall Street Journal invited to the event, didn't show up. CNN, MSNBC were invited to the event. They didn't show up. I did. And I can tell you, Joe Manchin wouldn't have that same kind of outreach. He would be even more buried. He is done. Yes, Jan, he may want to try and say he's going to do what we've seen many other Democrats have done and said, oh, I'll go into the Republican Party. But Manchin isn't a Republican. He is an opportunist. I agree with you, Frank. But we don't need any of them. Look, yes, I support RFK being heard, and I would say the same thing for Manchin. Let him make his case. But, you know, Manchin in particular, he has a history we can judge him by. In his history, he's not a Republican. He's not an independent. He is a Democrat. And he's agreed with most of the really horrible Democratic ideals that have hurt America. It's incredible to me. I don't understand it. It's just, it's aggravating. It's really, really aggravating.
As my father would have said, he's useless as boobs on a bull.
Yeah.
Except he would have been a little bit more colorful.
Yeah,
my father.
Yeah, I get it. RFK wants to say, "Oh, you know, I'm just as progressive as Biden, but he's mentally coherent," which he is. Fantastic, but he's no better.
Well, I just can't understand the appeal. Well, not that I can't understand. I can understand. I can understand why Kennedy has got some appeal among some right-wing voters because of some of the things that he said, and it's mostly about big business as far as big med, big pharmaceutical, the shots and all the rest of the stuff. So he's gained a lot of traction with that among a lot of right-wing voters. You know, he's been in favor of that. But this is a guy who was also the closest friend of Hugo Chavez before Hugo Chavez dropped dead. You got to remember that during the whole oil situation that we had there, while Venezuela was not permitted to do business with the United States, it was RFK, Jr., who was brokering deals to have Venezuelan ships of oil being brought into the United States and then sold, to middle and low income households. Now, granted, yeah, that I'm sure helped those people out an awful lot, because that was when oil was trading at $6 a gallon for home heating oil, and he was able to bring in 5 or 6 tanker loads full at $2.75 a gallon. But the guy was still dealing with a communist regime that took the oil from his people in order to do that, so that he could enrich himself while executing political dissidents. This is what RFK Jr. did. RFK Jr. is also the same guy who comes out and says, I support the Second Amendment, but I'm also in favor of banning all semi-automatic handguns and rifles.
He's an isolationist. He's in favor of a path to citizenship. He has massive problems. Mind you, that said, I still think he deserves to be heard, because he's a legit candidate. He's a legit candidate.
He's heard,
he shouldn't be blackballed.
And at this point right now, there's absolutely no reason why, unless, of course, Joe wants to see this guy follow the Kennedy tradition and get a bullet in his head. He shouldn't have Secret Service protection at this point. The guy is high profile enough where he should have some level of Secret Service protection. He does not. He has been denied Secret Service protection from the only people who could actually grant him that, the White House. Well, the White House is who makes the decisions as to who gets Secret Service protection. Now, they can't rescind Secret Service protection. Believe me, if they could, Donald would have none.
Right.
But they have to approve. They have to approve the Secret Service protection, and they haven't. I've seen ads on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everything else where he's out there begging, listen, can you guys please listen? You may not agree with me. You may not like me, but I still think at this point I'm at a certain amount of risk. Can you call the White House on my behalf and say, can somebody protect this Kennedy dude?
This is interesting.
No, I think he should be covered. I think he deserves to be treated like any other candidate. The fact that he's an independent and the fact that he's taking votes away from Joe Biden is not a reason for him not to be treated as a candidate and respected on that. And it's a matter of our First Amendment that he needs to be able to be heard.
Again, Biden would rather see Sirhan Jr. pop up than give this guy even one modicum of respect enough to even dignify his candidacy. Because if he dignified the candidacy, it shows a weakness on his behalf. It's bad enough. The White House already came out, the staff already came out last week and said that they acknowledged that the economy is his weak point, that they're acknowledging that people are starting to perceive the economy is not working very well.
You can't deny it. 3.9% unemployment. The numbers are going up. The number of small businesses is going down. Inflation is skyrocketing, and it's going to continue. We are in a recession, have been since August of 2022. No matter how they want to redefine it, it is the fact that it is. You can't get away from those things. So, I mean, no shock to anybody on any of these things. Wait a minute, Mike, you were about to say something. What?
Going back to the Lindell.
Mike Lindell, yeah.
Okay, and actually freedom of speech. Here's something interesting. And the Democrats are already working on their spin against the Lindell case. Meta's decision to allow ads on Instagram and Facebook falsely claiming the 2020 election was rigged is reckless and dangerous. Once again, Meta is putting profits over public interest and the sanctity of our elections.
Oh, you well, that's an ad out for anything.
Well, that's fucking Q-Tip has got that on it. Tell me honestly, Adam Schiff, doesn't he look like the illegitimate son of Andy Kaufman and a used Q-Tip?
he's got a look to him. I'll say that. But I mean,
He
notice that Adam Schiff, Representative Adam Schiff of California, a man who's so beloved that he lost his district and is running for Senate only because Dianne Feinstein's dead. Adam Schiff was the guy who went on to Rachel Maddow for 3 years in a row, promised the American people that he had actual physical proof of Russia collusion, never presented it to the American people, and 4 investigations later, $35 million later, we found out that he was wrong. He lied to American people. Never had
and
the proof,
was
never had
censored
it,
for it.
and was censured for it. And he's talking about whether or not Meta should be able to allow people to advertise their opinion.
Mhm.
He's the last
Yeah.
person in the world who should be saying anything about this.
Oh, exactly. That's why I thought it was kind of comical. But it's also interesting that all this time, Facebook and Instagram and other social media platforms were literally blocking anything that dealt with people saying the 2020 election was that there's
Irregularities.
issues with the 2020 election.
Yeah. Well, they only like a month ago lifted their restriction, month and a half ago, lifted their restriction on identifying the 2020 election as anything except the most secure and safe election that has ever existed. Only a month and a half ago. And you couldn't say why. Mind you, you could say there were election irregularities, but you couldn't say why you still can't say why there's election irregularities.
Now, but this is rather interesting how this is progressing. And then we get this ruling for Lindell.
Right.
And there's other things that have been coming out. Okay. And I've said all the way along, okay, we know what the quote unquote reported results were. However, the number of questions raised in the 2020 election, in the 2016 election, in the 2014 election, in the 2012 election, and actually going all the way back to Bush v. Gore, leads me to think that we need to take a major look at our elections, and we need to start having some major audits on all election returns.
Never going to happen.
Oh, and I know it won't. But the fact is, ever since the hanging Chad incident,
2000,
every election since has been fraught with irregularities, and each election it's gotten worse.
Yes, and this is something that was well known. Google in 2015, there were articles in Google. You could find it easily on Google searches by the mainstream news media, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. A few of them were reporting in 2014, 2015 that there were holes in the election system, which were supporting the arguments by Democrats in 2008 and 2000, in the year 2000 and 2008, respectively, that there were problems with our system as it existed. But you're forgetting, Mike, that since that time, we have now learned how to fortify elections. I keep mentioning it because people keep forgetting or didn't know that the 2020 election was fortified by a secret shadow cabal. This is how Newsweek described
Right
them.
here.
This is how they describe themselves. Thank you. There it is. The shadow cabal who came together to fortify elections. And that's what they did in 2022. And they're about to do it. And they are in the process of doing it again in 2024, which means they go out, they censor certain comments. I just posted in the comments today, just about 20 minutes ago, YouTube decided to suddenly have an issue with our conversation today and was trying to interrupt and delete the live stream. Shadow Cabal. We've heard them talk about bringing back the Ministry of Truth, the Disinformation Governance Board. We know that the White House is now begun to once again collude with mainstream media and social media on what messages are approved and not approved. They were given that okay again. This is part of the same process we saw in 2022 and in 2020, where we are seeing the shadow cabal fortifying elections so that you vote the way they want you to vote. You have to vote Democrat. I mean, otherwise you're just not black, and everyone wants to be black, right?
Well, I'm half Sicilian as far as I can tell. I got African blood in me. Listen, guys, it's getting on 4 minutes to 11.
Yes.
I'm going to be cutting out a little early because my dog decided that at 11:30, 1:30, 3 o'clock, and 4:15 that it was the right time to go to the bathroom. And I haven't been to sleep yet. So I'm physically exhausted. But I just wanted to throw out my pick for, I think this is going to be a new segment we're going to have to do. My pick for what I'm going to call Politician of the Week. This is going to be my. I think every week we're going to have to pick out one politician who did something that I think we should applaud or at least recognize as being way to go. That kind of thing. Senator Markwayne Mullin, okay, Republican from Oklahoma. He's at a hearing this week, and this is a follow-up hearing to another hearing that they had a while back, and it had to do with the Teamsters Union. And now Markwayne Mullin apparently made a good amount of money in private industry as being the owner of a plumbing company. And his plumbing company, I guess, does pretty good work, and he's made himself a good amount of money in it, and eventually decided to run for Senate. Well, he had some guy at the former hearing a couple of months ago, some Teamsters Union guy who has been convicted of, I guess I would have said he was convicted of like threatening people and coercing people and trying to do stuff with union votes so much to the point where Jimmy Hoffa Jr. had to remove this guy from his position. Jimmy Hoffa Jr. had to remove someone from their position because he was corrupt. Well, at the hearing a couple of months ago, this guy whose name isn't even worth mentioning got into a little bit of a heated argument with the senator. And in the subsequent months, went on to Twitter, belittling this senator, going after his family, saying some very derogatory things about him and stuff like that, and then challenged him to a fight. Well, I guess he didn't know that there would be a follow-up subpoena. So the guy showed up at Capitol Hill the other day, and Senator Mullin was none too pleased with the guy, and told him, he said, well, now that you're here, he goes, you want to do this here or do you want to do this outside? Where do you want to do this? And they were like, what are you talking about? And he goes, hey, this guy challenged me to a fight. I'm a get him to stand his butt up. I'm going to kick his ass. And went after the guy at the Senate subcommittee. Bernie Sanders lost his shit. He didn't know what to do. Did not know what to do. But Mullin went so far as to challenge the guy. He said, listen, you have gone after me. You've gone after my family. You've made threats against me. You've had nothing but a big mouth. He goes, so here's what I'm going to do. He goes, let's do pay-per-view. You pick out your charity that you want, and I will beat the hell out of you in front on pay-per-view for whatever charity you want. Man up. Apparently this guy didn't know that Senator Mullen is an undefeated MMA fighter. So if you get a guy if you're gonna make threats against somebody, don't make it against the guy who's got like black belts and it doesn't. When you get a guy who doesn't mind getting punched in the face repeatedly and like kind of gets off on that, this is not a guy you want to threaten. This is not a guy whose family you want to go after, because somewhere I see a headline down the line, former union executive beaten to a pulp in an alley. I don't know why, but anyway, Mark Wayne Mullen, for your bravery in taking the unconventional path and being a man and saying, you know what, I'm going to stand up for mine and take that challenge. You are my politician of the week. So thank you.
That works.
Thank you for standing up and just for nothing else, just showing that somewhere out there, if you challenge a man's honor, he's going to stand up for it. And I appreciate that, because we need more of it. No, I'm not saying we need more violence. We don't. But more men in this country have got to take back the mantle of what masculinity means and standing up for your families, standing up for your values, standing up for yourselves. And if it means that you have to be uncomfortable in standing up, let it be uncomfortable. The longer you stand and the more you look around, you'll find that there's more men that will be willing to stand with you, because courage is contagious. And we are in a tremendous deficit of masculinity in this country, and we need more of it. So when you're being challenged, stand up. Stand up, and I guarantee you will not stand alone. So with that, I'm done ranting. One last thing. For you guys who may have seen on the YouTube channel, every now and then I got my nephew Vinny pops up on her every now and then. He's really soft-spoken kid, really good kid. Today he graduated from NASCAR Technical College. He is now an official NASCAR certified mechanic.
Sweet.
And I'm wearing this shirt today. I don't know. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but it's
there you go.
We're all part of Vinny's pit crew. This is why I was late tonight. We were at his graduation ceremony and party today. So Vincent Mackey, we wish you nothing but the best in your career. And like I said, whenever you need tools, Uncle Frank's got them, so don't worry about it. But the trades, if you got a kid who doesn't know which way to go, doesn't know what he wants to do, there's nothing wrong with looking at the trades, because as we go further into this line, having good hands is like being able to print gold bars. You'll always be able to make your way if you have a talent or a skill. Exploit it, use it for your benefit.
Well, that's more of them. That's it. Somebody with a degree in gender studies is going to have a hard time surviving.
Yeah, because I could tell you there's only two. I got a degree in gender studies. Yeah, so do I. I'm male and female. That's where's the thing I put on the wall? Where's my diploma?
Okay.
All right, Vas, give us a plug for your show this weekend.
Oh yeah, every Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do a live stream all around the world, covering all kinds of stuff. I mean, like what we were talking about here, about what's happening in New York City, the budget, talking about the economy, talking about what's happening, how we are getting closer. We're going to talk about Joe Biden and China, and how that's going off the rails.
Except to hear him say it, they made some terrific progress.
Yeah, we want to raise a dictator.
We want to raise China up.
Yeah,
A strong China is good for the world.
that's such idiocy.
Maybe we'll get some footage of all the cleaning up they did this past week in San Francisco, how they bulldozed all the homeless encampments and
Yeah.
pressure washed all the human feces off the streets so that Zhao Jinping, whatever the hell the guy's name is, could have his prestigious motorcade run up. Do you want to know what pissed me off, though?
That's
They
all
had
back now.
They had this guy at the friggin' White House. I don't ever want to see a United States Marine in full dress blues holding a Chinese flag.
He was holding a Chinese flag.
An American Marine in full dress blues, flanking the gates of the White House, flanking the door of the White House, holding a Chinese flag.
I don't remember them doing that.
Well, it was done. It was done. I was sick to my stomach when I saw that. I said, if my father was still alive when he saw that, he would have take the bird ball and hook charm off of his necklace and thrown it in the garbage if you seen that.
No, I'm saying I don't remember.
Ever seeing it in the past?
Yeah, that we hold a separate flag than the U.S. flag.
No, you would have a flag stand on the ground that would have both flags of the countries that were meeting, and you wouldn't have them being held by somebody. You had the United States Marine being used as a political pawn. Holding the flag of a foreign country at the White House is a political move. And I'm pretty sure that that's not only a violation of the flag code, but I'm also sure it's a violation of law.
It's a command by the commander-in-chief. It's a legitimate legal command by the commander-in-chief. Yeah. You would have to do it.
He would.
He might have to follow the command, but if it's not permissible to make that command, if he would have said, "Hey, I want you to shoot this guy," he couldn't shoot the guy.
Yes, he would. 9 out of 10. Yeah, he will. If there's any kind of justification whatsoever, even close to a reason why he said shoot that guy, you shoot him. It is commander-in-chief, chain of command. And if you're not going to follow an order, you damn well better be very well versed and very clear about how you don't. No, you don't really get a choice. He said so, do it. Sadly.
Especially one coming from the president.
Yeah. You really have almost no leeway.
Well, I don't think the president ordered him to hold the flag, but somebody did, and I don't believe that that's legal. You're not supposed to use military personnel for political statements.
No. Military personnel can't choose to make a political statement.
Right.
The president can choose it all he wants. Remember Philadelphia when he's bathed in red light like the devil himself and has 2 Marines standing in the background in every single photo by national
he was
TV?
chastised for that.
He was, but the Marines weren't because he said,
I'm not blaming the Marine.
No, I'm not. I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying the decision to make that Marine do that is illegal.
I understand, but my point is, but he can always make that. You can always chastise him for it. He's commander-in-chief. He can always make that statement. He can always give that order.
Fucking shit who shouldn't be in the office. That's all I can say.
That's
no Marine should ever carry the flag of a foreign nation. Period. Yeah. Even if they're an ally. You want to have a member of your visiting visiting military stand there next to a Marine holding their flag? That's fine. That's fine. You give them special dispensation to do that. You don't have an American Marine holding a friggin' Chinese communist flag on the White House grounds.
I wouldn't have them hold a British flag. Bring your own British Royal Marines, and they don't do that. You go overseas.
Right. It's absolutely friggin' disgusting that happened.
Yeah, that amazes me.
A real president would not let that happen. All right, guys, I'm out of here.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael, refresh everybody's memory on what the hell they can do about joining up and buying some coffee, maybe winning a gun or some other silly shit like that, because we got so much going on. It's hard to catch up, and I'm tired.
Is. As you guys know, we do this for our passion for the United States. And we do most of this out of our own pockets. and our reach is rather limited. Okay, we aren't uber billionaires or even millionaires or even 100,000aires. We are blue collar workers, go to work every day, just like most of you do. So, in order for us to better get the word out, we are asking for your help because when we all come together, we can make a big difference. When it's just a few of us, then it's like trying to find a ripple of a rock in the middle of a hurricane. You're not going to see it. We need to become the hurricane, not the rock. So, that being said, if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, there are numerous ways that you can do so. One way, and one of the biggest ways, is become a member of the Liberty First Foundation. You can find that on our website, the Liberty First Foundation, L1F.us. That's L1F.us. You can also help us by signing up for U.S. Law Shield membership through our affiliate link. We are an affiliate with the U.S. Law Shield. U.S. Law Shield is a rather interesting organization in the fact that if you ever have to use a firearm in a defensive act, they will stand behind you 100% with your legal fees. So they are a very good organization to actually, it's a safeguard for you because even if you're in the right, it can cost you a ton of money if you're ever involved in a defensive use of a firearm. So I do highly advise that you that you join with U.S. Law Shield and you take advantage of their services. Besides offering legal services and so forth, they also offer a lot of training. And the other way is we have our own line of coffee, if you all don't know about it. Whoops, wrong one. There we go. We have coffee from Leo's Cafe, and you can start buying from the Liberty First Foundation collection of coffees and tea. I'm actually going to be ordering some of that here very soon and giving you all a review as to what it is and how I like it. Frank's already done some of that. And Frank, why don't you tell them what you thought of their coffee?
All right. You asked me what coffee is. It's coffee. I don't do any of the foo-foo flavors. I don't do any of that silly other crap like that. Oh, I want blueberry. I want raspberry. I want vid. No, it's coffee. I want coffee. I want a little splash of milk in it. Now that I'm diabetic, I can't have sugar. So I like coffee. I'm not big on flavors, but we have that whiskey-infused coffee. God damn, that's good. That's some really good coffee. Some really good coffee. It's really good stuff. But what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks is we have a shipment going to be coming in of samples. And what we're going to do is we're going to start offering some samples out here on the show. And to some of our more loyal viewers, we're going to send some samples out to you guys, and you guys can tell us what you think about it. And if you want to order it, we'll see what we can do about maybe getting a coupon code up for you guys to see if you want some of it. And of course, if you guys want to help share and distribute our link, at least to be able to speak to it from a point of consumption and experience, that we do have some pretty good stuff out there. And we have a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming out there. Right now, I just got hiccups.
I think it's too much of that whiskey-infused coffee.
Yeah, I'm thirsty. Well, look, here's the deal with me and coffee. I like I love coffee. It's just well, whenever I go out someplace, people like will ask, do you want coffee? Do you want coffee? Do you want coffee? They drop the do off the question by the time they point to me, and it's like, do you want coffee? Do you want coffee? You want coffee? Do you want coffee? Do you want? Everybody knows if you see me at a table, you just assume I'm going to have some coffee. I have regular coffee, and then my favorite thing in the world is Manhattan Special Espresso Coffee. It's a soda. And if anybody who's ever grown up in the 5 boroughs of New York City who's in a coffee and aficionado, Al Pasaro's famous Manhattan Special Coffee is the greatest thing for a coffee drinker to have. We love this. It's the pinnacle of espresso, except in a soda. It's addictive. It's wonderful. I've been drinking that stuff since I'm like 3. It's probably the reason I'm a diabetic, or at least a contributing factor. Our infused coffee is just as good. And that's coming from, and I'm not saying it because we're making anything off of it, because we're really not. It's more or less to help us with some branding, some name recognition, and stuff like that. But it's really some really good coffee that we got. I'm gonna be ordering some of the tea too. Lori likes tea, so I got to get her some. But I got to have some more coffee because I'm running low on mine, and everybody who comes over is already like, "You got any more of that coffee?" Yeah, I have some more. So now I got to buy more. So, well, I'm gonna jump out of here. You guys finish up. As always, be safe, shoot straight. Tomorrow night, we're heading to the range again. We got a couple more guns we got to do some reviews on. Oldies but goodies. So if you like old guns, Bud guns, the reviews will be coming this week. But until then, you guys be safe and shoot straight.
All right.
Thank you, Frank. Okay. So, he's a goof.
Yeah, he's been a goof.
So, one other way that you can help us is by helping us get the word out. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. All by doing those things, whenever we hold our live streams or on any of our posts on our social media platforms, what that does is it pushes us past the algorithm that is blocking a lot of our content. The more likes, shares, and subscriptions that we get, and especially when there's a lot of engagement on a particular post, the better that post propagates to other people that may not even know about us. And that is one of the best ways that we can actually get the word out. So if you would do that, that would be greatly appreciated. We're here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And with that being said, we've got another week ahead of us. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.